You might like Star Wars Return of the Jedi, but here's a bunch of people who hated it. Suffers from a mostly unfocused narrative and doesn't have much in terms of plot. Jabba's palace goes on way too long and the Ewoks are given too much screen time. It delivers on its great moments, but they're bogged down by the film's inconsistent tone, and too much is happening by the third act that it becomes nonsense. Also, the cinematography for some reason looks almost made for TV. It's easily too much is going on is just a weird statement. It had a lot to wrap up, I'm sorry. Like, there were 2 movies before it that set up a lot of crap. I would hope there would be a lot going on. If literally just one thing was going on, then why have the other 2 movies? Also, made for TV? Have you seen the Boy in the Plastic Bubble starring John Travolta? This doesn't look like made in TV at all.
Star Wars Return of the Jedi, dumber and slower than the rest of the original predecessors. Star Wars The Return of the Jedi is a weak and disappointing end to the original series. Dumber and slower. Ewoks had intelligence. I don't know what you're complaining about. Just because you couldn't understand what Jabba said doesn't mean that he was being dumb. Just you.
I've watched every Star Wars film hundreds of times, and though it deserves a higher rating than what I'm giving it, what? I don't know if I want to read. Oh, fine. I'll read it. God, that's dumb. Alright. The fact is, it definitely doesn't deserve as high a ranking as the trendy folks that love teddy bears and have deluded themselves into thinking that these waddling creatures could accomplish this much while looking past the many plot holes and somewhat poor acting. I mean, the movie only has about 15 minutes good scenes, and they have seen fit to give it a 4 out of 5. What a joke. I wonder if it was mostly drooling Generation X who gave it this ranking. Drooling Generation Xers who love teddy bears is apparently the only people who like Star Wars Return of the Jedi. And also, you wanted to give it, why did you give it a lower rating? Just to take down the other ratings? That's dick. What a fucking dick move. Oh, screw you, man-o.
The Ewoks ruined this movie. I'm sorry. A lot of Ewok hate. I guess that's the same kind of hate that they're getting with the Porgs? Is that what this? Yeah, the Porgs. The creatures with duck feet. People just hate cute. You're single, right? I'm assuming. And yet you all love fucking Taylor Swift or whatever.
Spoiler alert, the Star Wars series has reached new lows. In the last movie, it was nice to see Han Solo being more involved in the story than Luke Skywalker. But in this movie, Solo is barely seen and viewers instead are forced to put up with whiny Luke and Mark Hamill's wooden performance. I can't complain much about Carrie Fisher's performance as Leia. However, she was probably so high on cocaine that she thought what she was filming was actually real. George Lucas just had to mess things up. The first 45 minutes of this movie is a rescue mission. First of all, let me just say that you're a dick if that's what you're saying about Carrie Fisher, because she's awesome. Even if you don't like Star Wars, she's just awesome. Second of all, the reason we don't see much of Han Solo is because he's in carbonite. He can't be like through the whole fucking movie. That would be way weirder. That's what puppets are for. The first 45 minutes of this movie is a rescue mission for Han Solo, where we see so many disgusting creatures, played by puppets of course. Their only objective in the movie is to sell toys to kids. Unfortunately, this trend doesn't stop. Halfway through the movie, we're introduced to teddy bear. Alright, I'm done with it. No, I'm done. Everybody's calling Ewoks teddy bears. I get it. We already established that you hate cute. We get it.
This may be technically the best of the original trilogy, but it already possesses some annoying parts which make it overall the weakest part. If I ever have to stand these teddy bear-like Ewoks again, or this sorry bunch of hut scum, I'll need to retch. Everybody's just talking about f***ing Ewoks. It's the best of the trilogy, but the weakest of... I still like the universe, but in the meantime, it's nicer to experience it in computer games, because they know how to transport the dark atmosphere of the Imperium. You know, it's interesting that you're like, I like the games better, but they couldn't do it without the movies that set the tone, and the storyline, and the characters, and the worlds, and the sci-fi. Just leaving that one there.
It's that moment when you prefer burgers over cows. Can't have a burger without a cow. Although I guess now you can. There's some vegetarian shit that apparently is burgerish. Return of the Jedi. The end has arrived and I had to skip one big as it's just full of what does that mean? As it's just full of characters singing and dancing, which bored me to death. There's not that much singing and dancing in this movie. What are you talking about? You also might have watched the special edition where they added that whole weird jazzy dance number. That doesn't count. It was added later, doesn't count. I understand that there were dancing celebrations with the Ewoks, but we've already established that everyone hates everything that's fucking cute, so moving on. Like others, it's pretty boring and feels like a movie of two halves. One half saving Han Solo and his corny acting and stupid Actually, I'm just gonna stop here. It's not a movie of two halves, it's the third movie in a trilogy. So there's gonna be acts that take place in the movie, and then it's also the third part of 3 movies. So, I feel like it should feel like that.
I watched this one again and I'm modifying my review. Oh good. Maybe getting older has made me more jaded, but now I feel this installment was pretty lame. You know, time doesn't heal all wounds. Look at me.
This is a major league disappointment after Empire Strikes Back. After seeing Cloud City and the Imperial fleet zipping across the galaxy, why am I watching overdone teddy bears in a bland forest? And you know what? I feel like if I brought up Teddy Ruxpin to the same person, or fucking gummy bears or anything like that, they'd be like, oh my god, I remember that, I loved it. So why are the Ewoks so fucking bad? Calm down, teddy bears are fantastic. They bring joy. They help people sleep. They're like Vicodin, but soft.
The only time teddy bears aren't cute is when a Teddy Ruxpin breaks. That's nightmare fuel. So by the end of this trilogy, Han Solo has sort of turned into a boring wuss while Luke has turned badass. It must have been the Ewoks as Luke got away from them as fast as he could, and those scenes with Vader, the Emperor, and Luke. How many times can the Emperor tell Luke his friends have failed and will die? How many times can the word destiny be uttered? Who was the scriptwriter for this one? Only redeeming part was the fight scene in the desert, though Boba Fett's death was sort of lackluster. How many times can destiny be said? How many times can the bad guy try to kill someone and threaten to kill someone? I mean, bad guy monologues weren't necessarily cliche at that point, but they've become it now, so I guess I can kind of see the annoyance to it, but you gotta put yourself back to when it was made. You know, it's like, there's a reason McDonald's isn't mentioned in the Bible.
Also, just to make a quick point, one of the biggest monologues that happened from a bad guy was the Emperor. And while he was doing his monologue, Darth Vader and him were fucking Luke up the whole time. So it's not like they were talking and not doing anything. They were literally fucking him up the whole time they were telling their whole thing. Pretty much the second worst movie I've ever seen that actually had a budget, anyway. Watch Mojo's top 10 worst movies ever made that actually had a budget, sort of, anyway. The worst, of course, being the remake of Fog. Screw you for saying of course. That's a bunch of crap. Don't say of course unless people obviously know that. You know, like if someone was like, hey, turns out that you need water to live, and you could be like, of course. Because yeah, of course. But not of course Fog. Who the f saw the remake of Fog? Jesus. You're the type of person who when a waiter walks up and was like, anything to drink? And you're like, of course. F you. Get me what I want without even me having to say it.
Hollywood's getting to you. Weakest Star Wars movie in history. And those Ewoks killed it. And probably ate it.
Worst Star Wars. The atmosphere and characters are all there, but the plot makes absolutely no sense after they get off Tatooine. The new characters are boring. The dialogue was never strong in Star Wars, but it's particularly weak in this one, especially the distortion of the Han Solo I know line from episode 5 that completely robbed it of everything it meant. Are you talking about when she says I know? That has to be what you're talking about, right? Because that made it more meaningful. And how the f do you know what it meant? You didn't write it. It was also improvised. You don't know what Harrison Ford was thinking when he said that. He also might not have been thinking. It might have just flown out of his mouth. Gross.
Worst installment of the 6 Star Wars films.
Come on. Ewoks. Worst movie decision ever. Clearly you're a person who doesn't realize that at some point someone went, hey, let's make a live-action Super Mario Brothers movie. You know there were bat nipples, right? Like, how could this be the worst movie decision ever?
It has some good parts that are ruined by bad parts. I had some good ideas. Why is that so funny to me? It has some good parts ruined by some bad parts. Alright. It had some good ideas, such as the ambiguity in the start of whether Luke had started to go dark, and some themes in the confrontation with Vader and the Emperor. However, it was hard to really get into the good parts to do the rest of the film with the silly tone and scenes that kept switching back and forth. It has some good parts ruined by some bad parts.
Good parts ruined by some bad parts. Just like meeting a gorgeous, cool woman who punches you in the face all the time. It's like, I guess I'll deal with it. I just really prefer the first trilogy over the second one. Spoiler alert, prophecies really have their way to be proven true. What the f is that a spoiler? You just said something kind of ambiguous that could go along with like any movie that has any kind of foreshadowing at all. It's not a spoiler. I don't want to ruin this book for you, but it has some things happen later on in the book that are kind of hinted at the beginning. Sorry. I'm sorry for ruining literally every book.
Most overrated movie ever. This movie is more invested in kids' action spectacle schlock over good story and characters. Weak conclusion to what could be an amazing trilogy of movies, and it's on par with the prequels. Are you saying it's as bad as the prequels? What schlock did I just read?
Getting kind of Muppety now. Best review ever. Oh, the only problem with that is that I love the Muppets. So that shouldn't be negative. Like if I was about to walk into an exhibit somewhere or something like that, and the guy was like, it's a little Muppety in there, I'd be like, how much? How much? I'll just pay it. I just want to go in. That sounds amazing. Your 2 stars are bullshit. Your comments bullshit because Muppets are awesome. So that just, like, it's like happier and better now is all you said to me, and just had an inaccurate amount of stars.
It's found your fucking passion, Jesus.
I like Muppets.
For me, this is the worst of all the Star Wars episodes. The idea of having the gummy bears help Han Solo and Luke Skywalker to defeat the Dark Lord is too goofy. Bouncing here and there and everywhere. Find the Jedi so that they can prepare. That didn't work.
I'll be perfectly honest, I'm just surprised you made that rhyme. That was impressive that you even made it rhyme. You win. Fairly entertaining, but lacks integrity, enjoyable plot, and is horrifyingly funny for an action sci-fi movie. Well, you're out of luck. Because watch most sci-fi action movies, and there's a lot of humor in them. Most of them. Literally most of them.
I hate bullshit in movies. I especially hate George Lucas because of his bullshit. This is where we truly see amateur filmmaker George Lucas, a rebel against the fascist Hollywood system, become the system. Toy sales. We can't kill Han Solo off. That might hurt profits. Is the ending cute enough? Add some Ewoks. Tell the people down in R&D to whip me up the cutest little shits people will grow to resent in 30 years. What's the writers? You want to make a bittersweet and poignant ending? Leia is grappling with the difficulties of becoming a queen? The rebels in tatters? Luke walks off alone a la Man with No Name? Nope. This is amazing. There's more. Aside from all this hating, there are good things about the movie, and it's definitely entertaining. It's just a tragedy to see something so good die so horribly. Know that this movie exploits the skills of actual craftsmen for the sake of Lucas's wallet. Okay, I'm done. Wow. Oh, Kevin. Kevin, oh, Kevin.
Cute little shits you'll resent in 30 years? That's called children. Not that good. I expected a lot. It's weird to give it a 50% based on what your words were. That's a little strange. And expected a lot based on what? The other 2 movies? Or just like you have ridiculously high expectations about action, sci-fi, space operas in general? Because that's weird. There aren't that many of them, especially at that time. That's weird.
I could write a whole book on movies I think are overrated. I always cringe when I see an immature movie, such as Return of the Jedi, get audience acclaim. I mean, seriously, Ewoks? It's fucking everybody. Jesus, I hate those things. The direction is indifferent, the script is a scattershot, the characters are lifeless with no emotion, the story sucks because it's so freaking predictable. Don't let anyone tell you that this is a classic. It's just a crowd pleaser at the end of the day. Isn't that what a classic is in general? You hate... Wow. Jared just put up his icon and realized that he's trying to sound like an adult.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If it's your first time here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you can get notified every time we have a new video out. Also, we'd love to hear in the comments what you think of Return of the Jedi and what you thought of these stupid reviews. And until we see you guys next time, geek out and game on.